Alright, I know there's already a heap of clips out there on this one, including the great Carl Brown, but I feel like everybody's missing the point with this piece, this brilliant piece of music. And it's not going to take me long to explain what I'm talking about here. Let me start by saying this is one of the first pieces of Edward Van Halen that I ever figured out as a kid, as a young teenager with that vinyl Christmas present in my hot little hands. And what drew me to it and what kept me with Eddie throughout his career and to this day is not his speed and his flash, it's his groove. He's just one of the grooviest, swingingest guitar players that has ever existed. I'll put his feel up against anybody. And look, he's not a mechanical clockwork rhythm king in that sense. Him and his brother Alex were obviously locked in tight together, but their tempos could fluctuate throughout the song to what it needed to be to drive it along. So I'm not talking about that sort of rhythmic ability as much as where he sat within the beat, where he felt the swing never changed. It just grooved, it swung so hard, always, relentlessly, forever. All right, I'm getting carried away. So that's the main thing that I want to get across here. I mean, as usual, I'd like to think that my tabs here, my ear has figured this out more accurately than everyone else on the internet. But that's not the point. The point is, you can get all these notes right. You can get all the slides and dead string strikes and all that stuff correct. But unless you're swinging it like Eddie did, it's not going to sound anything like he did. So let's have a look at this thing. It's like 18 bars of a very basic blues riff. It's basically this. And then obviously Ed would put in all those sweet licks that taught me as a young guy so much about improvisation and how to find my way around the pentatonic scale in a very funky way. But we'll look at those in a minute. What I want to point out first, let's just look at this very first phrase, because the way Edward played with his muted strings, string clicks, whatever you want to call them, they help propel the groove along. So I'm going to just play this first phrase. I'll do it slower. We've got those couple of string clicks in there. I'd recommend sitting and doing that over and over to lock into that feel. Don't worry about the tempo. Do it nice and slow to feel that, you know, what a riff that sounds like once you put those in. It's so different without it. Still good, but that's the biggest lesson here. Get that groove. Those string clicks don't have to be right there. Do them where you feel it, where they're going to help you lock in. You know, think of it like a drummer with those ghost notes on the snare. 99% of songs just sound like boom, ka, boom, ka. But the drummer, if you listen close, is always playing sixteenths, like on the snare drum in between, boom, ka, boom, ka, whatever the feel might be. And that helps drive that rhythm and helps to set out the feel for the song. So two songs at exactly the same tempo with seemingly the same beat can have a very different feel due to that sort of thing. And that's what I think is going on here with young Edward's playing. Let's go straight to the third bar, which I think is a great example of Edward using rhythm rather than notes to come up with a cool lick, a cool phrase, a cool fill. The bar sounds like this. So slower, 3, 4. So there's a couple of things I want to point out about it. He's got that little pull off and hammer, and then the upwards pick. And that last note of that part is staccato. It's cut very short. So that's part of the rhythmic picture. It's not just where you strike the note, it's how long you hold the note. And then it goes on. So we've got another couple of those string clicks. Now the end of the bar, he plays those 3rd fret notes, the F note and the B flat note on the D and G string, 3 times on offbeats. But the first one and the last one are staccato. The middle one is longer. So it doesn't just sound like ba, ba, ba. It's ba, ba, ba. So the whole bar again, now that you know that. What a wonderful phrase. He's hardly added anything to the riff, but it's now a great phrase. It makes me want to play that bar over and over and lock that groove in. All right, next, the very next bar, Eddie misses beat 1 and does a little rake across a G minor 7 chord. It's just 3rd fret on the E string, muted A string, 3rd fret on the D string, 3rd fret on the G string. You probably saw I'm playing it with my thumb over the top. I'm not sure if Eddie did it that way or not, but I've got a very lazy technique due to teaching myself from watching a Hendrix video over and over when I was very young. It comes in on the end of beat 1, so it's like 3, 4, 1, and. But you got to start slightly before the end to get that. Otherwise it's just a strum. And then we've got the same sort of thing again. A clipped chord, a couple of muted notes, then a held chord, then a clipped one again. 3, 4, 1. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's my earthing cable. I've got an earthing problem in here. So that spare guitar string is fixing it for us. The next phrase that I want to highlight is probably my favourite in the whole thing. It's so swinging. It's the 8th bar, and Edward plays. It sounds great straight away. I love playing it. Every take I did on this, I broke into a grin upon playing that bar. So again, he's not adding other notes to this thing that weren't already in the riff. It's just his phrasing that has changed. And it's got a little muted open A note in between. You don't have to do this sort of stuff, but I just love getting into the nerdy detail. So that's your first 4 notes. Again, I'm starting with my thumb there on the 3rd fret. Then pulling off from the F note, 3rd fret of the D string to the open D string. Then he does that twice. So after he plays that phrase twice, pulls off to the F and then plays the F. Now you notice the right hand is basically picking like 1 and 2 and all the swing is done by the pull-offs with the left hand. So it's like. And then he finishes with, again, a clipped chord, and then the same one but held. Now that one, genius. The next one is a lick that he plays a couple of times in here, hammering on from the F note on the D string, 3rd fret of the D string, to the G note on the 5th fret of the D string, but while holding the B flat note on the B flat note on the 3rd fret of the G string. So that bar finishes with that slide back out of the standard pentatonic position, which was probably the first place I ever encountered that. I thought it was pretty damn cool. There are 4 bars in this thing where Edward opts to not play anything on beat 1 at the start of the bar. The guitar is the only instrument playing, along with Dave singing, and yet the bottom doesn't drop out of it. He can leave beat 1 blank and it still sounds wonderful. 3, 4. There's just nothing there, which is another wonderful example of Edward using rhythm rather than notes to improvise. I don't know who said it, but the spaces between the notes are just as important as the notes. Or is it the spaces between are more important? I don't know who said it, and I don't know what they said. Let's move on. Okay, look, I've got to mention this completely nerdy bit of trivia, but one of the final licks in this thing, Edward plays, and there's a split second, an absolute split second, where as he's changing position, his third finger slides into the 6th fret just before he pulls off to the 1st finger back at the 5th. I'm exaggerating it there. You can hardly hear it. You need a magnifying glass in your ear. But I heard it for the first time when I was writing it out this time. I wrote this out when I was a kid and I didn't hear it back then. But I was listening again today and I went, oh, he's changing position there. Yeah. Sorry, my apologies. All right, and the final nerdy thing is when he finishes this, I always thought it was just a G power chord, like a G5 chord, but he's got his fingers flattened, or at least one of his fingers flattened, because you can just hear a C note on top. Which, yeah, those tiny details sometimes add to it. Well, they give me something to talk to you guys about anyway. All right. Don't forget to like it, and if you want printable tabs, they can all be found over at my Patreon, where you can come and give me a little bit of love and get a lot of lessons and tabs and all sorts of stuff in return. Thank you. See you soon.